Hi, this is Regina Y. Favors with Pre-Singles Counseling. This is part of my Pre-Singles Counseling coaching curriculum where I design lessons and case studies based in the psychology literature on different topics. This Pre-Singles Counseling is targeted to three types of individuals. The first individual is a person who is interested in becoming single. That means that person is not necessarily interested in dating or entering the marriage market. The second individual is a single individual who is interested in entering the dating market. And then the last individual is a single dating individual who is interested in marriage. So take some time to listen to this lesson and or case study. Please leave a comment and I will reply. In addition, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell if you are interested in further topics. This is Pre-Singles Counseling, a Pre-Singles Counseling coaching curriculum. Thank you for visiting the channel. This lesson is subject to fair use, where I will comment, criticize, offer research, as well as teach and provide scholarship. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to do the following: list the three main reasons why a partner may see another partner as a 7/8, define investment model, summarize good versus poor alternatives, distinguish between the original investment model and the expanded investment model, and then define sex ratio hypothesis. Single women should be knowledgeable about how they are perceived in the mating market, both sex and marriage markets. Women for whom men rate as a 7/8 are often viewed as alternative mating partners, non-competitive, and likely rebounds. The investment model, as an extension of interdependence theory, theorizes how quality of alternatives, relationship satisfaction, and investment affect one's commitment to a romantic partner. Partners use cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors, such as jealousy, to maintain a relationship. Power in a relationship can be both enabling and disabling. The female 7/8 who is not in demand loses power to the high-value male partner. What is pre-singles counseling? Pre-singles counseling is based in a decision to enter or exit singleness. Pre-singles is the time period between single and contemplation of dating. There is a difference between being a single individual and being a single individual who has entered the dating market, which includes the sex market. Pre-singles counseling is the processes by which an individual researches, learns, and plans to navigate life either as a single, a dating single, or a single interested in marriage. So here are some pre-discussion questions. What is the investment model? What are the 6 power principles? How is the 7/8 viewed in the mating market? What is the economy of sex? What does status, inclusion, and aspiration mean for the female 7/8? What is psychological congruence? And then what is the person of tomorrow? So we're going to talk about the investment model in particular, and then also the power principles to give you an idea of how relationships between a 7/8 and a 9/10 are often negotiated. Sometimes the 7/8 might decide to give an ultimatum to, say, a 9/10, not understanding that the 9/10 or the high value partner has more power in the relationship. So let's do keep these questions in mind. So here's a pre-lecture note, because this is a fairly lengthy lecture. You may have to pause, but the lecture is organized based upon the reasons. So under each reason, there is a full exploration of using psychology topics and theories, but they're not hard to understand. So the lecture is organized by offering 3 reasons why a partner may see you as a 7/8. You are an alternative, you are not competitive, and you may be a rebound. You may fall under one or more of these reasons if a partner sees you as a 7/8. So if I don't know if you remember the film with Denzel Washington, The Equalizer, in 2014, but I thought it was interesting when Denzel Washington's character Robert McCall was going against the Russian guy, and he visited him at the um, table at the restaurant, and they had their exchange, and I thought it was something interesting that he asked, and I didn't think about it until when I began thinking about this lecture, and then when I finished it. And so this slide here is actually a last edition because I had watched The Equalizer, and I thought that question that he posed, Teddy, the Russian guy, the antagonist, I thought it was very interesting. What do you see when you see me? And so Teddy is asking this question, when you look at me, what do you see? And then you see Denzel Washington's character, Robert McCall, chuckle a little bit, and he shifts in his seat. And then Teddy basically says, the answer's nothing. I have no feeling about you one way or the other. You're like lint or a bottle cap. You're just a thing to remove. And that's something that you want to think about, because those words seem to read and read kind of harsh, but there are some people who see you as nothing but a thing to remove. And you want to, if you are perceived as a 7, and you just may be perceived socially as a 7/8 because there are not that many 9s and 10s. But I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with someone who made it their point to make me feel like I'm less than either. And even if I might fall under a 7/8 due to physical attractiveness or not enough attractiveness for certain people, you still don't have the right to make me feel inadequate. You don't have the right to throw water on my mirror. If I'm going to have self-esteem issues, it is something that I'm going to have to worry about and think about and address. It is not up to you to tell me how I should change my hair, how I should change my dress, how I should lose weight. That's all for me to think about. And if you're not the type of person who is okay with my process, then it is definitely clear we don't have to be together. That is fine. It's okay to leave the relationship. I think sometimes when people see you as someone that they are not necessarily willing to marry, it's almost like they feel like they got to stay in a relationship out of some sort of honor or something, some pity or something. You don't have to pity anybody. If the person is not your type, the person is just simply not your type. What you don't need to do is hold on to them, keep them until the person that you really want comes back around. So when you think about this question, what do you see when you see me? I think social perception does matter, because a lot of times it affects how we navigate life. But the most important thing is always self-perception. So you cannot be the right fit for somebody else, but you are a fit for something or a fit for somebody. Just because you're not a fit for an ex does not mean you're not a fit for somebody else. So what do you see when you see me? I want you to consider that as we go through the lecture. All right, so now that we have finished the last 2 sections for why someone might see you as a 7/8, and those last 2 key points were section key points where you may be an alternative or you are not competitive. So this is the last section, you may be a rebound. If you are perceived as a 7/8, and we're talking about that there are many more 7/8s in the mating market. So that means men have options, especially if they are looking for a high value partner, and they, uh, typically prefer a 9/10. If it is a woman looking for a high value partner, he would ordinarily be either high profile or alpha male. But when you are a rebound, and we understand what a rebound is, essentially someone is undergoing a recent breakup, and instead of taking some time to heal and self-reflect and improve themselves, the person immediately pulls at a rebound. And so that person is used as a coping mechanism, as a coping strategy, to boost self-esteem and ego, to adopt a short-term mating strategy, something of convenience. But if you are a rebound or considered a rebound, and men usually are the ones who tend to seek rebounds more than women, and the psychology research actually supports that. But they never tell you that they are using you as a rebound. But it is the art of dating down. And so if you are a rebound, and we've all heard the statement, no one marries their rebound, you can rest assured that that statement is actually true. So it is always much better to wait out relationships. Don't be so eager to get into one or eager to convert it into long-term partnership or anything like that until you know your status. Like, who are you? And that requires asking the question, when was your recent breakup? If they say a week, you are a rebound. If they say a few months, maybe, it depends. It depends on what they had been doing, what the guy or the girl had been doing prior to meeting you. But that's still a short time. So take some time to listen to this last part of the audio and gain some insight from it. So rebound and mate value. A rebound is a different mate value. It reflects a lower mate value. A rebound can be really at any level. So you can be a rebound at a 9 or 10 or 7, 8, 5, 6, or anything below 5. And so some people say, well, why would I choose a person who is a rebound at a 9 or 10? I mean, that's the highest level. Because you could be a person who only dates 9s and 10s, but is in love with the 9 and 10, and you just recently broke up, and then you go and pull at another 9 and 10. That person will become a rebound if you are not healed from the previous relationship. So it is possible. A male or female partner can perceive or use any other person as a rebound for whatever reason, any season. This is especially true if the partner decides to go back and pull at another ex-partner. So here it is, you are in relationship with someone, you are having trouble, you break up for a time, then you go back and pull at someone you already know, which is always the case. It's rare that you would make a person you met at the bar a rebound. It's always you go back to someone you already know. We know the Gabriel Union and Dwayne Wade situation, right? They broke up for a time before they got married. They broke up for a time. And then he goes back and pulls at a previous woman he used to know, and I think he has kids with, or he didn't have kids with at that time. Well, he ends up getting her pregnant. And then when things get back together with him and Gabriel Union, he now has to sort of bring that child along into his marriage. And she was considered of some kind of value to him. I don't know why they broke up, but they were of some kind of value. But the point is, they always go back to something that they know, somebody that they understand, somebody that they know. And that was basically to drown his sorrows. It was wrong to do. I feel like it was wrong to do because he knew he didn't want that ex that he went after. He knew he wanted the woman he is married to now. So mate value is that individual's overall attractiveness as a potential mate on the mating market. So most components are attractiveness, likability, and also friendliness. Mate value may be related to infidelity. So, it's kind of difficult. If the person, say for instance, somebody does marry you and you are a rebound, um, it is very likely that they're going to cheat on you because they didn't really want you. They only used you for a time, and um, and they are looking for a way out. And to cheat is to exit. It always means to exit. And so infidelity to me is a state of mind, a state of consciousness, something that is long term. Cheating is at one time. A collection and lifestyle of cheating would be considered infidelity to me, because now it goes to the heart of your morality and as well as ethics. So mate value, if your mate value is low, your partner might cheat on you. But then we have a lot of partners who say, well, I wouldn't have cheated on her if, she kept herself up, she, looked nice and things like that. And they're looking for like a 10, for the person to keep themselves up like a 10. But how many basketball players and football players and other high profile businessmen have cheated on their wives, and they look like trophy wives? So it can't be just the woman alone in the situation that is causing the man to cheat, because after all, he chose a high value woman. So infidelity, cheating at heart, and infidelity is something that is more personal to the man or to the woman that they need to work out and figure out. A woman's mate value relative to possible alternatives may be a predictor of mate retention efforts. A person of lower mate value may find it difficult to replace a partner of higher mate value. Virtually all men perform mate retention behaviors, but that the type of behavior a man performs will depend on the partner's mate value. So if the man is a lower mate value man and he has a higher mate value woman, he is going to perform some sort of mate retention behavior. It depends on his own psychology, though. If he grew up in a home where the father hit the mother, even if the woman is a trophy wife, he's going to hit that woman. That may not necessarily be true for some people, but you do what you know. If it is a lower mate value man with a lower mate value woman, it depends on what she's doing. If she's trying to improve herself by going to school and trying to have a little business on the side or whatever, he is going to use cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors. He's going to be jealous. He's going to be envious. He's going to use insults towards her because he's basically trying to hinder her on her way. If it is a higher mate value woman with a lower mate value man, she may play little mind games, manipulation, get him all stirred up, right? Because she knows she can discard him. And then if it's a higher mate value man with a lower mate value woman, or maybe, depending upon the status of the higher mate value man, it could also be a higher mate value woman, then he would restrict her financially. That's how he would use cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors, right? Depending upon their goal to either retain a mate or punish the mate for actually leaving the relationship. A man of lower mate value will use cost-inflicting behaviors such as manipulation, intimidation, and possessiveness, withdrawal of financial support, spreading of false rumors, revenge porn, and cultivation of a backup mate. The one thing I know we all need to be careful about today is revenge porn. Is is letting somebody video us, right? Now that our phones have that capability, now that we can get cameras and things like that, that is something that I would definitely be careful about, because put in the wrong hands, it could cast you into a negative light if you decided to, divorce, especially if he brought the tape or she brought the tape to the courthouse. Cultivation of a backup mate, that's usually done while you are already in the relationship. You're trying to cultivate and spend time. It's like this type of person who is dating. He has one person over here who is a 9 or 10 that he wants to respect or give off the airs that he's honoring her and respecting her. But then the 7, 8, he's drowning her in sex, because he's not having sex with the 9 or 10. He has to make up for it. So once the 9 or 10 decides to come around, then it's much easier to go on ahead and perfect that relationship. But I don't think he would still let go of the 7, 8 if he can still get sex when the 9 or 10 doesn't want to give it to him. A woman could ascend in status through her own deeds and thereby increase her mate value. Partners often monitor each other's mate value to determine if investment or disinvestment is necessary. So these are the types of partners who will usually leave the relationship that you thought you had a good one, but as soon as you lost your job or became ill, that person left. So that means that people like this often monitor whether or not you are still a good investment. Now, regular people, everyday people, whether it's at the high or low mate value scale, they may always monitor if you are keeping your job. That's a normal thing. We are two grown individuals. We both need to keep a job. So if you're the type of person who is losing jobs all the time, jumping from job to job to job, then there is going to be some sort of monitoring from your partner. But that's on just a very basic, common sense, everyday level. It's when you marry someone that you thought was a keeper, and you married for looks and physical attractiveness, and you thought that person was going to be it. But as soon as you got sick, as soon as you lost your money, as soon as any part of life changed that would affect her or him negatively, they left. I know a situation with a woman. She was married to somebody, and I think he married her because he needed somewhere to live. And I think he was cultivating a backup mate behind her back. And once that backup mate came around, okay, I will marry you, he went on ahead. He came into the house, he packed his bag, and he left. And he didn't say anything to that individual lady. He just left. And then he filed the divorce papers. So you got people like that. And she didn't necessarily do anything to him. Like I said, I think he was looking for a place to live. And so in some circles, they will go on ahead and marry you just to secure a place with you to live. But once the person that they really want comes along or comes around, they will leave you. Even if they're already married to you, they will leave you and go and be with that person. So monitoring is something, there's the regular common sense monitoring, and then there's the monitoring for when they can leave as well. So assortative mating, when you have these two, when you have mates who decide to mate switch, assortative mating is the proclivity for individuals to be in a long-term relationship with someone who is of approximate equivalent mate value. This means that people seek mates closer to their mate value. So this is the argument about 9s and 10s belong together, or 8s and 7s belong together, or any of regular people belong with regular people. That's what assortative mating is here. Attractive people often date attractive people. High status people often date high status people. When one person is of lower mate value, The goal then becomes to mate switch by exiting one mateship for another. So as soon as you see someone that you think would be a better partner for you, and we always base it on physical attractiveness, how the person looks, then we look at the money. Or if we know something about the person, that we know their money first, and then we look at the looks. But it all depends on what we already know about the person. However, people often do not leave one relationship for another without a backup plan. So that's where the cultivating a backup mate comes in. This means that while the high value partner is in relationship with a lower value partner, as he or she perceives the person, the high value partner will cultivate one or more backup mates. So that's what we've already been talking about. The high value partner will not automatically end the relationship with the lower value partner, even if he or she is exiting the relationship emotionally and psychologically. So people can already be gone out of the relationship. They can already have exited the relationship emotionally and psychologically. Their body is just still there, and their soul is still there as well. If the two partners are married, then cultivation of a backup mate would result in an affair, right? And affairs typically serve as mate insurance. So is you keeping your backup mate in tow is like the married man who always says, "I'm coming. I'm going to leave my wife for you. Just hold on, right? Just hold on. I'm going to leave my life, and we're going to build a future together." So, and you don't know how long he keeps that person in tow. People have been mistresses for years, and the man has never left the woman until the wife decides to leave. And when the wife decides to leave, then the husband decides to come on back to the mistress and say, "Okay, let's get married." But that's like 20 some years could have passed, right? But they use an affair as a form of mate insurance. So these are people, and mainly people in general, don't want to be left alone. They don't like the time that you have alone with yourself, because then you feel the pain. Then your mind goes to thinking about all of the what ifs, how you can change, how you can get her to change her mind, how you can get him to come back. And all of that is really painful, because it's hard to leave relationships when you have made so much investment. Even if, even a person who makes the smallest investment thinks that they have made an investment, and that they don't want to so easily tear away from the ideal of coming back together. But why would you tear down something that you have built? I never could understand cheating. I really don't understand the concept of cheating. Why are you tearing down something that you have built, have invested in? Even if it was just you going to the movies, even if you were just you going out to dinner, that's all investment if you live together. But then you decide that you want to cheat to get out of your current relationship. I honestly, naively maybe, just don't get it. I don't understand how people can do that. So how does assortative mating relate to the rebound? The rebound partner reflects a short-term mating strategy. The choice of a rebound is based in part on the environment in which one person seeks and or chooses another. For example, if the prospective female rebound partner is in a club, then it is likely that a high-value potential male partner will approach the female based on her attractiveness as well as her choosing signal. So I've heard that most men usually tend to respond once you send out choosing signals. Of course, you got some very forward, aggressive men who would just walk up to you as well. What does this mean to the rebound? If the male partner walks over to the female partner in the club, he may be expressing an interest for more mating partners, leading to engaging in sex and possibly short-term courtship. A potential female partner in the same environment might also pursue a short-term mating strategy where investment is unnecessary to engage in sexual intercourse. So these are two people who are basically meeting each other in a club, and they're going to do what they're going to do once they leave the club. It might turn into a one-night stand or just an exchange of numbers. Individuals with a more restricted sociosexual orientation require more time in relationships before having sex with partners and are less likely to enjoy casual, uncommitted sex. Unrestricted individuals require less time in relationships before having sex, and they are more comfortable engaging in sex without love or commitment. So there is the expectation that if you are having a one-night stand, there's no love or there's no expectation of commitment. Why would you expect a person to commit? But where it turns into the expectation of commitment is when you move it from the one night stand context to meeting together and having sex on a regular basis context, and then conversing and having discussions about what each other wants context, to now there is the expectation of commitment. And that's what happens to the rebound. The rebound is thinking that just because we have moved from the one night stand, or even if you didn't encounter somebody with the one night stand, but you encountered them in another environment, you didn't know that you were becoming a rebound, right? As a result of that person struggling with a previous relationship, and you're thinking that it's just a regular connection, emotional, romantic connection that seems to be, blossoming and turning into something. So now there is the expectation of commitment. Suffice it to say, both men and women are not expecting to establish long-term relationship goals while dancing and flirting in the club. There's no expectation of partner investment. However, if the encounter between a high-value male partner and a low-value female partner happened in a library or a classroom or a church, these environments are likely to support a long-term relationship orientation, because there's no expectation that you're going to have sex right after meeting in the library. We usually attach that kind of expectation to two people meeting at the bar and then somehow going to a hotel room or something like that. The potential female partner would be more selective about her mate choice because sexual responsiveness might result in a long-term investment as a partner. Women more than men tend to prefer traits that predict long-term investment ability, such as his earning capacity, ambition, or professional degrees, have a preference for a smaller number of sex partners over a lifetime, so women don't usually jump into bed with people, and have a preference for longer relationships. They prefer the commitment. That's how women think. If you find a woman who is having sex with you multiple times and you are perceiving her as in a derogatory way, that's not how she is perceiving the situation. She thought that you were the kind of person that was worthy enough to consider as a long-term partner. So that's why she's agreeing to sex, because she assumes that's how you think. Otherwise, if she thought that this was a wham bam, thank you ma'am type situation, she really wouldn't open her legs. She really wouldn't get on her back. She really wouldn't lay down in the bed and let you, do what you do with her. Women don't think the same way as men in a romantic situation. Men, on the other hand, will still prefer physical attractiveness based upon fertility expectations, and that investment, the types of investments they make are always predicated on your attractiveness as well as your sexual availability. So she is being sexually available, but the man is perceiving it as being sexually available, meaning that he's thinking to himself, well, if she's available for me like this all the time, she must be available for someone else. No, she just realizes, or she believes, she's in a relationship with you. And that's what you would do in a relationship. What I found out what men do, though, they want you to be sexually available, okay, and respond to them in that way as if we are in a relationship. But when they really want out of the situation, they start to criticize you for being sexually available, for being the thing that they wanted you to be. So it's really, once they get into this shift of criticizing you, it's really because they want out. So what does this mean for the rebound? The rebound is replaceable. Even if the partner marries the rebound is always replaceable. A woman can use a man as a rebound. A man can use a woman as a rebound. Partners higher in mate value than oneself are more or less by definition very difficult to replace. Therefore, the partner seeking a rebound considers himself or herself as a high value partner. So that means to that person, he considers himself as superior to your inferior. Because why would a man ever want to go on record as marrying his rebound? How many times have other men judged that man and criticized and mocked him for marrying his rebound? And all the men around him, all his friends knew that the woman was rebound. Same thing about a woman. Most women don't really mock other women for marrying a rebound, not in person. They will go behind the woman's back and talk about it. And then somehow it'll just come up in a conversation, in a joke or something like that. Since high value partners believe that they are difficult to replace, it makes more sense to replace the rebound woman either by keeping the woman as a backup mate while remaining in a core relationship, or waiting for it to return to stasis, and or by completely exiting the rebound relationship. The problem with this logic is it's just too logical for men. And I'm talking about men in this regard when it comes to sex. And I might be talking about women when it comes to money. Men often, even if they get married to somebody else, will still try to make an attempt to speak to the ex. And what they're trying to do is keep some kind of hook in the ex. Keep a hook in the person. So that if something goes on wherever they are now with their current partner, they know that they can pull at the ex. And it's always for sex. It's always for sex when it comes to men. When it comes to women, it's always money. So she might be married to she might have gotten pregnant. Okay, how? Let me think about this. She might have gotten pregnant by a high value partner who was physically attractive, but then married a less attractive man. But when the high value partner comes to town and floats his boat or whatever, she might pull at him for something. Or it could be the reverse. She could marry the physically attractive guy, high value man, but he doesn't give her money like the low value man used to do. So she might keep the low value man around. He would never know. The husband would never know. And the man might live in another state, and she might cry and talking about the marriage is not going right or whatever. And I think I'm going to return back home. And so he might give her money or something like that to try to, help her or whatever. But she never really intends to leave the physically attractive partner. She's not going to leave him, but she's going to use the money from the low value partner to, substitute for money that she can't get, so easily. Because the rebound is considered replaceable and a low value partner in terms of how he or she is perceived as a rebound from a high value partner and socially, the goal for the rebound partner would be to become irreplaceable to get the high value partner essentially to see beyond the initial goal of seeking a rebound and create a new goal of a long-term relationship orientation. So a lot of times we don't want to be replaceable. So what we do is we do all we can. We allocate all our efforts to mate retention. So we will do more, for the man. We will give him more sex. We may give him more sexual variety. We might cook more. We might become more and more wifely. Whatever it takes to become irreplaceable. Because the last thing you want to do is be replaced. For rebound partners, becoming irreplaceable entails increasing the partner's dependence on them by taking some of their partner's responsibilities. Usually that could be, financial. So you might decide your partner has a child with his ex and he's struggling to pay the child support. You might make your partner dependent upon you by you paying the child support yourself. Because he may not make enough money and you may make a lot more money. And so it will be just easier for you to kind of take on that role or help him in that role. After all, you two are married. But I think a man should pay his own child support. In particular, people can make themselves more indispensable by satisfying more of their partner's practical needs. That means providing instrumental support, and then also by strengthening their partner's investment in the relationship. That means you limit contact with outside friends. However, a rebound partner who seeks to become irreplaceable is already at a disadvantage. The male partner, for example, will base his assessment of a woman on attractiveness and sex. If a rebound partner can provide these investments, then she might become a member in a dating rotation. However, the male partner would never perceive the rebound partner as more than what she is. So if you're looking at assortative mating and you have your rankings on one side, your 9s and 10s, your 7s and 8s, your 5s and 6s, and anything below 5, then the rebound partners might have their own assortative mating, rebound with rebound, right? And so a lot of times that's what you often find too in these mating markets, people who have been discarded. And so now you have a whole group of people at the club who've been discarded, and now they're all trying to be with each other. And they're all emotionally sick, psychologically unhealthy, financially bankrupt, morally suspect, ethically challenged. Okay, so you cannot change a person's mind when they consider you a rebound. In addition, the rebound partner is still 7-8. It is unlikely that a man who perceives a woman as a 9-10 is also considered a rebound. The replaceability aspect of romantic relationships is always imminent. As a 7-8, you can do everything for a male partner and still not receive the respect you deserve. The only exception to the rule is the 9-10 if the man only dates 9s and 10s. There still could be somebody who is considered a rebound at the 9 or 10 level because that man only dates 9s and 10s. If you are a 7-8 and a rebound, the group consensus is this: no one will marry their rebound. However, a man will marry a rebound if she gives an ultimatum. But that doesn't mean that he has truly married that woman in his heart. Therefore, he will cheat on the rebound partner on the 7-8. The rebound and the 7-8, who could also reflect both, is considered a low value mate. Even if the 7-8 increases her mate value, the initial perception of that person as a 7-8 and as possibly a rebound never really changes. A 7-8 and a rebound would be fighting a losing battle. So here's a takeaway section I want you to consider is me helping you to pursue psychological congruence. When you enter these relationships, especially rebound relationships, they are not necessarily mutual, in the sense that you both know that you are rebounds. Only one person in the rebound relationship is privy to the fact that it is a rebound relationship, or is initiating in that way because of a recent breakup. And so, to ensure that you develop healthy relationships, it always begins with the initial goal, that you are actually in relationship, and you are in the process of building a relationship. A relationship. So I want you to think about this as we go through this last section here, as we end the lecture. What are the next steps? I think you should ask this question after you realize you've been in a rebound relationship, or if you look at any of the three main sections of this lecture, whether you was an alternative, whether you were not competitive, or whether you was considered a rebound, you should consider what should be the next steps, because one of the things that is very important is your self-esteem. And you can't stay in a relationship when the person sees you only in one way, and is not willing to see you in another way. So if the rebound and the 7/8 are replaceable, then what should either do to go forward? Because perception may not necessarily be factual, but is always emotionally based, the goal of the rebound partner should be to exit the relationship. There's a difference between understanding that you may be a party to a rebound relationship, and understanding for self-esteem purposes that you are not a rebound as an individual, that is not your life goal. That's not a fact for you. It might be emotionally based, and given the circumstances with the person who initiated the rebound relationship, that it might be a fact for that person that they conveyed to someone else. But for you, you were not birthed to be someone's rebound. So therefore, it's not a fact for you that you need to remain a rebound. One of the next steps is very obvious, which is to exit, right? So exiting is a process. It's difficult, and it has its challenges. The first goal might be to develop an exit plan that creates a process of exit, versus exiting and leaving the relationship on the same day you realize that you're just a rebound. It depends on the situation. If you are just dating someone, and you both have your own places, shelters and everything, you exiting the relationship should not be that hard. If you were in a marriage and you turned out to be somebody's rebound partner, and he married you, but he, secretly held a torch for somebody else, then it definitely might be very difficult to exit that relationship. You may have to plan your exit, not let the person know that you are wanting to exit the relationship, but plan, financially first. So, because at any time with rebound relationships, they are so unstable. If that ex-partner of his comes back around, he could leave you at any time. Because remember, you're not the first choice. You are the rebound. So once you realize that he is still fooling around with his ex, that begins your planning to leave financially, so that you have a place to go, you have something that you can depend on, versus him kicking you out and you don't have any money, or him leaving you with the rent by yourself, right? And you still don't have any money. And so it takes a process to consider right before you make the final decision. In my case, I let my ex save money. Once I realized that he was just not going to leave his ex alone, that cheating for him was a lifestyle, I began to let him think that he was saving money for us for emergencies. And so he had gotten up to several $1,000s. And then once I got the last indication that he was still fooling around with her, even after repeatedly telling me that he wasn't, and she telling me that they were not fooling around with each other, I knew that I could kick him out for good, because I knew that he had some money to take care of himself. If I hadn't planned out the process and I kicked him out and he didn't have any money to take care of himself, then I would have felt bad. And we always make emotionally based decisions. We don't make logically based decisions. The logic would have suggested, you cheat, you take care of yourself, period. You made that decision on your own, so it's time for you to go today. But our emotions are, well, he's going to be out there by himself. He doesn't have any money. He doesn't have anywhere to go. He lost his job. Any excuse that we can come up with to, justify remaining in a relationship. So if you are that kind of person, as many of us are, because even the person that you see throwing somebody's stuff outside on the lawn, they always end up taking that person back some kind of way. Some kind of way. You will see that person back in the house not less than a few weeks. So if you know that you are that kind of person, then you have to plan a lot differently. There's nothing wrong with understanding that you are, sort of vulnerable in that area. No problem. But you have to make decisions in life. And you can't stay in a relationship that is toxic, that is going to likely cause you bad health in terms of physically, bad mental health, bad financial health, just toxic all around. The exit plan will require you to assess your own psychology. Reflect on why you chose the person in the first place. Challenge your belief systems about sex and love and marriage, short-term and long-term relationships, including unmarried cohabitation, and your mate value in comparison to others. Essentially, you're at the road in life where you will need time to heal and plan for the best. And one of the things that you need to heal from is sort of like a broken understanding about relationship building, and that oftentimes we will put the sex first, thinking that it's going to be say like a good start towards relationship building. But once you put the sex first, it immediately stops the relationship building and it all becomes about sex. Also, we will venture into living with the person with the hopes of getting married. But if you want to get married, don't live with the person. I don't care about our, democratic views about sex and love and marriage, and don't legislate the bedroom or something like that. I'm talking about you at the individual level. You said that you want to be married. So then why are you living with the person prior to marriage? So when you are thinking about healing and planning for the best, if the person you want to marry doesn't want to marry, do not continue to engage in that relationship. I know it's hard. I know that you want to be in love and be married, but you are only going to waste your time realizing that you should have just waited and gotten a better person. In general context, so what is psychological congruence? Creating, adopting, and pursuing important and attainable personal goals increases your well-being. Goals are reached and progress is made, then well-being increases. So if you are having psychological issues, that means you may not have set the right types of personal goals, sometimes academic or professional goals, because when you set the right types of goals and you achieve them, or there's some sort of improvement or increase or progress is reached, then your well-being increases. Everyone on some level has a gap in their financial knowledge. If you're still living paycheck to paycheck, or you're struggling to pay your rent every month, or you are still just sort of complaining about your finances all the time, you do not have well-being. It is part of your anxiety that you struggle with all the time, wondering if you're going to be able to meet your bills and goals and things like that. You are not necessarily financially ahead in your life if you are still struggling with certain concepts in terms of finances, that you pay your bills, you don't get more credit than you can pay. You need to make sure that you have sustainable income as an adult. You may have to create a side hustle or get a second job that's part-time, but you always make more than you expend. And that's something that we all struggle with. Even a good businessman, if he is still breaking even by his fifth, sixth, seventh year, there is something else going on. He's not turning profit. So what is missing in his financial, base of knowledge? I mean, you can look at the person who is making $25 million a year, but that person could also be perceived as, merely breaking even for his industry. At what point is he? I mean, the only thing he can do is pay bills and pay his employees. So at what point is he going to get beyond 25 million to the next levels where he can turn profit, that he doesn't have to be in the red, and that he can operate more freely without anxiety? Consideration of romantic relationships as a specific context is a goal pursuit. So we set goals to be in relationships. People in close relationships often pursue individualistic goals to the detriment of relationship goals. Both types of goals must be taken into consideration. So these are people who might pursue, invest more into their career versus into their romance, right? But once you engage in relationship, you have to balance that. You can't say, I'm going to stay at the job 18 hours a day and not come home and then expect for somebody to be a husband or wife to you just because you came home at 11 o'clock at night. It doesn't work like that. What most people do is, once they get into a relationship, they still operate like they are single individuals and not two cohabitating partners, two long-term partners, two marital partners, right? They like to still operate as if they're single. And I think it is almost like a form of rebellion, that sure, we're together, but I'm still going to, maintain me. I mean, I still have a right to be who I am. But once you are in relationship with someone, it becomes, the both of you. You become interdependent. You are no longer independent. And so goal pursuit is connected to interdependence theory. And we already discussed this in the previous sections of the lecture. Your goals can be both goal congruent and goal incongruent. Goal congruent activities in romantic relationships are associated with higher levels of affective well-being and feelings of closeness. So, for example, partners work together to make each other happy. They will sacrifice or let go of the need to fulfill their individual immediate interests for the sake of each other. Now, the most common example would be if your partner got a job in another city or state. And sometimes this happens when you just get married and it's not that hard to make the transition. And sometimes this happens when you have been married for a while and you have been on your job for a while and it's hard to make the transition. But, you make decisions in a marriage that are mutual. Of course, when there's head of house, and sometimes that person could be the breadwinner, then wherever you go to become much more economically sufficient or independent or whatever, then that makes a big, big difference as well. Goal incongruent activities in romantic relationships are associated with lower levels of affective well-being and feelings of distance. So a good example of this is one partner always wants his or her way. So partners are characterized as wanting their way. One partner will get what he or she wants, while the other partner feels neglected and used. Because in any relationship, when you feel like you cannot get what you want, and even if you are just asking for just a little bit of something, you always feel used. You always feel like you are the person who always has to give in, always has to um, make allowances for the other person. Congruence then is the degree to which one's personality matches one's behavior in a particular situation. Congruence contributes to psychological health, and it may be normative or distinctive. Normative congruence is defined as the degree to which a personality is typical and the association with his or her behavior is also typical. Distinctive congruence is the degree to which personality is atypical and the association with his or her behavior is also atypical. Congruence, however, is studied in multiple contexts and environments. Congruence is simply defined as harmony between one's self-concept and one's ideal self. All right, so let's look at Carl Rogers' person-centered theory, which he frames as an if-then conditional. If certain conditions exist, then a process will occur. If this process occurs, then certain outcomes can be expected. So if the therapist is congruent and communicates unconditional, possible regard and accurate empathy to the client, then therapeutic change will occur. If therapeutic change occurs, then the client will experience more self-acceptance, greater trust of self, and so on. So if you look at it in terms of love, if you give unconditional love, then love will be received and change will happen. And if that change happens, then the person receiving the love will experience more self-acceptance and feel more trustful of your love. But when you give conditional love, people never respond well to conditional love. Because with conditional love, it can go, in different directions. And people get tired of dealing with someone who is inconsistent. Rogers' person-centered theory is based upon formative tendency and actualization tendency. Only actualization tendency is discussed in this lecture. So all humans, including animals and plants, have a tendency to move forward toward completion or fulfillment of a potential goal or activity. So when you find yourself sort of, hindered or distracted, that goal is being interrupted because it is inherent in us for us to move forward toward completion. We got to complete that thing that we started. And when you find yourself not doing that, that is something to think about, because even I didn't think about that until I just reached this particular slide, and I prepared the whole presentation. But it's interesting that if you are distracted, if you are procrastinating, if you are distracted, it is likely because some external forces hindering your goal, but you could also just be hindering your own goal internally. This tendency is the only motive people possess. They need to satisfy one's hunger drive to express deep emotions when they are felt, and to accept oneself are all examples of the single motive of actualization. So actualization involves the whole person. The person operates as one complete organism. So that is physiologically, intellectually, rationally, emotionally, consciously, or unconsciously. So there are two types of tendencies under actualization tendency, and that is maintenance and enhancement. So with maintenance, people often resist change. They fight against new ideals. They are comfortable with their self-concept and will find ways to protect it. And they will do everything they can to maintain the status quo. So these are the people that I honestly believe are cognitive dissonance type people. I don't remember the text. I created this lecture a while ago, so I don't remember if the text that I used made the connection to it, but I'm just assuming that when you have someone who does not want to change, and they only want to protect the self that they understand, I feel like these are the people who will do something to you but can't make the connection to the consequence of it. That they are so comfortable with their self-concept and will find ways to protect it. So we have a situation now with Donald Trump being impeached twice, and he sort of incited a insurrectionist to storm the Capitol, but he doesn't understand the consequence of somebody saying that he is responsible for it. He gives a speech basically inciting insurrection towards the government and putting the vice president in harm's way and the Congress and Senate. But when you accuse him of it, it's like he doesn't understand that he is responsible for the situation. He has a self-concept of being a winner, and that's all he understands. Even if he has to cheat and lie to win, all that matters is his self-concept, how he perceives himself. So anything that someone says to him is out of that self-concept, is so far from it. Even if he stabs somebody, he's been he said one time before at a rally, I think, that he can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and nothing will happen to him in terms of being charged. So he understands that he just shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, but he doesn't understand that if the prosecutor comes along and tells him that, okay, now you're going to be arrested, he would actually be confused. He would be really, really confused, because he said in one breath, I can shoot that person and nothing would happen to him. Well, he believes that. So if he believes that, then anyone who comes along and try to change his thinking, like him being charged, he's going to reject that evidence. Even if you showed him the videotape of him saying that and trying to help him make the connection that if you shoot somebody, you're going to be charged and go to jail, he's not going to see it. So he is comfortable with the self-concept, with the narrative that he has painted for himself. With enhancement, then people are willing to learn and to change. They need to become more, to develop and to achieve, and they are willing to learn things that are not immediately rewarding. So for instance, with the Trump reference, if there is no immediate saying that I am a winner, or the person saying that you are a winner after you have gone through a process, he's not going to do it. Think about when he was first elected and he had that cabinet meeting and it was on camera, and he had all of the cabinet members basically saying good night, really nice things about him and how well he did and things like that. Well, he had just gotten into office. He had just been elected to office. What good things have you done in order for the whole cabinet to say great things about you, to praise you? It was almost like, looking at people, basically bend their knee to him, and he hadn't accomplished anything. I don't even think he was a few months into his presidency. He was actually less than a few months, and he was already asking them to, requesting them to tell him he's basically a winner. So he's not a process person. Enhancement is characterized by curiosity, playfulness, self-exploration, and confidence. So he's not going to be able to enhance his um, self-concept or whatever by reading. He's never going to be a person that is who is rewarded for preparation, you know, for being curious about learning new things, and he's not going to be that type of person. So he's not willing to learn and to change, and I don't think it has anything to do with age. I think it has been like this for a long time. You don't get to the end of your life and start making new decisions. You basically uh, continue to use the same types of decisions because you believe they have worked. I think the first decision that should have been challenged with, say, Trump, was the one where he had his first bankruptcy and his father bailed him out. If his father had not bailed him out, he would have been forced to learn, or he might have tried to find a new type of gig and used it to make money. I don't know, but it's when you continue to bail out people from the very first, and then the second and the third, you'll find them at the end of their life honestly self-destroyed, because now he is the first president ever in our history of presidents to be impeached twice for his role in the insurrection. And so had he begun to change years ago, because he's in his 70s, had he begun to change in his 20s, even in the 40s, I say the 40s because that's when I began to feel my mortality. And that's when I realized I really needed to make change. It was a few years before I turned 40, about 2013, I think. And I realized that I was, financially behind, and that I need to get, start planning a better way for myself financially and everything. And so I was just curious. I started to learn things. I failed. I made some mistakes and things like that. But I'm definitely a lot better, financially than I was before. So now my goal is to get more financially ahead, have all of the financial resources I need before any bill becomes due. So that's my goal, to learn and to change so I don't have troubles with finances later in life. People have the creative power to solve problems and become um, self-directed. So actualization is then realized under certain conditions. Specifically, people must be involved in a relationship with a partner who is congruent or authentic and who demonstrates empathy and unconditional positive regard. Rogers contended that whenever congruence, unconditional positive regard, and empathy are present in a relationship, psychological growth will invariably occur. What happens most often, though, to prevent psychological growth in relationship building is when we place so many conditions on the relationship. I think there are deal breakers. I think there are certain conditions that a person must meet before we can build a relationship. We are two grown individuals who do not live at our respective parents' house. That means that we each need to have jobs, period. There is no such thing as you choosing to not work, right? Unless you are in a relationship where you want to only have one breadwinner, and then there's the stay-at-home mother, right? Or the stay-at-home parent. That's a little bit different. You set that as a goal. You usually set that as a goal. If you have a child, in the first 5 years, you're going to stay at home. But other than that, there's no such thing. There's no reason why you should house a man who doesn't want to work. So when psychological growth is hindered, it is likely because of some sort of conditional positive regard. So then that breaks the process. But if you both set the right types of goals for the relationship, there will be congruence, there will be unconditional positive regard, there will be empathy. All of those three factors are present that will ultimately lead to psychological growth. Therefore, congruence, unconditional positive regard, and empathy are necessary and sufficient for becoming a fully functioning or self-actualizing person. Self-actualizing or self-actualization is not synonymous with actualization tendency. Self-actualization is the tendency to actualize the self as perceived in awareness. When the organism and the perceived self are in harmony, the two actualization tendencies are nearly identical. But when people's organismic experiences are not in harmony with their view of self, a discrepancy exists between the actualization tendency and the self-actualization tendency. And we're going to get into both. For example, a man may express anger towards his wife, which is part of his organismic experience. However, the anger he expresses is contrary to his self-concept and perception of himself. This is the best example of this is a racist. They may exhibit racist tendencies. They may even express racism verbally. But if you accuse them of racism, they will go crazy telling you that they are not a racist. The anger he expresses is contrary to his self-concept and perception of himself. That in his mind, he's a good man. Just because he said this over here about this particular thing or whatever doesn't mean that he's not a good man. But the social perception of him, we see him as a racist, but he interprets it as not being a good man. He never addresses the racist aspect of himself or the racism or the racist, beliefs. All he understands in his mind is, I'm a good man. They don't want to change a certain type of thinking about themselves because then it will cause them to have to address the badness of them, and they don't want to address that. There will be conflict between his actualization tendency and his self-actualization. He will experience incongruence. So if his goal was to always be a good man, and then you're telling him he's not a good man, there's going to be a disconnect, a gap in his thinking, and his goals are incongruent. All right, so here are the differences between actualization tendency and then self-actualization tendency. Let's take the first column on the left. Actualization includes the whole self, and there are two types of tendencies. So there's maintenance, where there is a resistance to change, and then enhancement, where there is a willingness to change. There can be a conflict between actualization and self-actualization, leading to incongruency. That usually happens when your behavior overall, if we look at the totality of your behavior, there may be some areas of your life where you are interested in changing, but the major areas of your life that have a true impact tend to be the ones that you are resistant to change. So, for example, that is always, dealing with finances. You need to learn how to save money. Years have passed and you still have not learned how to save money. So looking at the totality of your life, because eventually we're going to see that decision manifested. You may be homeless. You may lose a job and not be able to pay your rent for the next 3 months while you try to find a job. That resistance to change from some years ago is now affecting your life in the present. So that's why your life is sort of incongruent. Now let's look at self-actualization tendency. So the tendency to actualize the self as perceived in awareness. And we understand that awareness means consciousness, right? Lack of harmony between organismic experiences and view of self creates a discrepancy between actualization and self-actualization. This leads also to incongruency. So there's this self that we have, a narrative that we create about ourselves, but then there is also a reality. So the narrative that we create is that fantasy of ourselves as being thriving, doing well, but we are living at our parents' house, or we haven't found a job. We're not willing to take a job until we can find a better job. So there is a discrepancy, which also leads to incongruency. If you don't remember anything else, I would remember the maintenance versus enhancement, the resistance to change versus the willingness to change. Under self-concept, a person can struggle with different aspects of themselves. He or she may be dishonest and experience some dealings in dishonesty, but not consider such dealings as part of their self-concept. Self-concept is the aspect of one's being and experiences perceived in awareness. So I always thought this is very interesting how about the narratives we create for ourselves. How many times have you heard someone say, "I'm a good person. I'm a good man. I'm a good woman. I'm a good person. I'm an independent woman," right? I'm an independent woman. Well, let's take the good one first, because many people do that. The people who often do that are the ones who commit many of the crimes. And I'm just, kind of exaggerating the point in a sense. So, but a lot of times when they're caught in something, whatever the something is, it can be cheating, it can be having to go to court because they didn't do something right out of some sort of criminal behavior or something like that. But then they give off this speech, "I'm a good person." And it's like their self-concept is so skewed and distorted that they cannot connect the fact that there is hypocrisy in their statement, or irony in their statement, that they are saying they are a good person while they are standing before the judge talking about and explaining their criminal behavior, right? A person who cheats with a married partner. Okay, I'm a good woman, right? Yet, but you are having an affair with a marital partner, right? Racist is a very good example, and I say this often, that a racist will call you the N-word, use the N-word, but still say he's a good person, or still say he's not racist. But he just used what we would call a derogatory word, racially based, and still spit out and still spew out of the same mouth that he's not actually racist. The independent woman. I heard one person say this, and I think I'm gonna get into it later. You are not independent if you have a bunch of debts, right? You're not independent if you are attached to something. Now, I don't really agree completely with what he is suggesting, but I do understand that if you're so tied down with debts, how are you independent? But I want to get into a more obvious example. You are independent, but you're living at your mother's house. You are independent, but you're living at your father's house or your brother's house. That's not independent. So you have all these people go around talking about, "I'm a good person, I'm independent, I'm this or whatever," but they don't live in the reality of themselves. They're not looking in the right mirror. They are looking in some sort of, distorted version, narrative that they have constructed to present themselves socially. And now they have to keep up with that, because that distorted view of themselves is a lie. Their view of themselves does not align with the reality of themselves, so therefore they're lying. And so they don't know how to pull themselves out of it, so they just maintain. And what people often do to maintain the narrative is they begin to change how they look, they change how they're dressed, so it looks like they are successful, but they're not really successful. Self-concept is not identical to the organismic self. Remember, the organismic self is that physiological, intellectual, rational, emotional, conscious, and unconscious. People can, however, form a personal self-concept, which then makes it difficult to pursue change and significant learning about their own awareness and conflicts with how they perceive themselves in relation to their own experiences. So if someone keeps telling you that you are one thing and you're saying you're not that thing, but the consensus is you actually are that one thing, then what will likely happen is you will begin to create a narrative, form a narrative that is completely opposite or counter to whatever the thing they keep saying you are. And then you will focus only on that narrative to the detriment of any other possibility for learning new concepts. If incongruence is defined as harmony between one's self-concept and ideal self, and it involves feelings, awareness, and expression, then incongruence is that wide gap between the ideal self and the self-concept. Incongruence reflects an unhealthy personality. It is also a barrier to psychological health. So the more you stay in a sort of discrepancy, an incongruent way of thinking, the more you're going to create a issue with your psychological health. So I was listening to a YouTuber. He's a psychologist or psychiatrist, but you may know him. His name is Dr. Todd Grande, TODDGRANDE. And he did a little YouTube analysis of a video where I think it's Joe Rogan or Josh Rogan and Kanye West were having a conversation. And it was about 3 hours for that video, but he condensed his analysis into just under 20 minutes of it. And one of the things that Kanye West was saying, that he didn't take advice from unsuccessful people. He said, why would I listen to someone who is unsuccessful? And everybody can teach you something, but he's never been a person who has taken advice. He had a mother who was a scholar, well renowned in her field, and then she died. And then before that, he had dropped out of college. He was an English major. He had dropped out of college, and then he created a whole album about being a college dropout, and how it was the best thing he did or something like that. And he kind of bragged about it. Well, you see now that you see sort of like the end of him. I don't think he's like completely ended his life or nothing like that, but you see how he has sort of rolled into bad decision making after bad decision making, to the point that his psychological health is affected. And what I believe that really is that he doesn't take instruction. He doesn't take direction. He doesn't listen to anybody else. And to advance in your mind and your thinking, you have to receive instruction. That's what instruction is. Like I always note in my audios, if the platoon leader says forward march to his platoon, and the platoon does not march, they don't advance. That is a literal visual representative of our mental states, that if we don't continue to read, gain new knowledge, analyze and apply, it's going to later affect our mental health, which will later affect our psychological health. So I really believe if you are incongruent in some areas of your life, or your life as a whole is incongruent, whatever area, see, most of my areas of my life were congruent, or I had success, or I was doing well. Finances were a problem, was an area of my life that I was struggling in, that I still had not mastered. So that means my life is incongruent. I can have places over here off to my left that are doing very well, and places over here off to my right that are doing well, and places in the front and places in the back. But there's still something that is hindering me from moving forward, and it is the finances. And if I don't get a handle on them, which I already am, it will affect me mentally, it will affect me psychologically, and it will affect my life down the road long term, especially if I'm going to live to 80 and 90. I would not want to have trouble with finances. If you see people who have to live in nursing homes, and it's not necessarily due to a particular ailment that requires them to be in the nursing home, a sickness or an illness or something like that, and then there's an issue with their insurance or something like that, and they're going to be kicked out. Well, way back when they were in their 20s, they should have developed a strategy about insurance. We all should. How many times have you heard these, financial planners tell you that if you put back $10 per week, or you put back this per week or something like that for 10 years, or for 15 years or something, you'll have $1 million by the time you are 65. That's hard for us to envision. But then you have people who listened, and they now have $1 million at 65 and more. So incongruence is when there's an area in your life, it could be two, but there's an area in your life that is just, there's a gap in your understanding about it, and it's going to eventually affect you psychologically. Okay, so let's look at conditions of worth. Another example of a barrier to psychological health is conditions of worth, which are defined as perceptions of others, including parents and partners. Those perceptions are based upon if a person meets expectations and approval. If we see that others accept us regardless of our actions, then we come to believe that we are prized unconditionally. But if we perceive that some of our behaviors are approved and some are disapproved, then we see that our worth is conditional. What this suggests is that we are often vulnerable to external evaluations, which also reflect perceptions from others. External evaluations do not foster good psychological health. They prevent people from being completely open to their own experiences. Struggles with perceptions from others make us vulnerable, increase personal anxiety and defensiveness, and further distortion of the self-concept. So because Trump lost the election, he has become a lot more vulnerable. His anxiety has increased, as well as his defensiveness. And then there is a distortion of the self that it is hard for him. He is now isolated in the White House, and it is hard for him to reconcile the idea that he's a loser. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't want to be disrespectful, but a loser in the sense that his self-concept is winner. It doesn't matter how you get the win, it is winner. And so now that he is no longer representative of that self-concept, and it is a distortion, he is having troubles trying to understand his worth. There are additional barriers to psychological health. One solution to repairing an unhealthy psychology is to become a fully functioning person, a person of tomorrow. So becoming a person of tomorrow requires several characteristics. Psychologically healthy people are adaptable, adjusting to static environments. Psychologically healthy people trust their organismic selves. So the very first one is most important, that when you do not win, okay, you don't necessarily have to call yourself a loser, but you just you adapt. You say, okay, I didn't win, Maybe I will come back for 2024. But you don't sit isolated and not run the government while you are already in office and still have a number of days in office. That's a psychologically healthy person would adapt to the situation. These fully functioning people would not depend on others for guidance because they would realize that their own experiences are the best criterion for making choices. They would do what feels right for them because they would trust their own inner feelings more than the pontifications of parents or the rigid rules of society. Psychologically healthy people have harmonious relationships with others. They do not feel the need to be liked or loved by everyone. Healthy people often prefer to seek intimacy with people who are equally healthy and certain to contribute to continual growth. Is nothing like having to deal with a person who just has a strange view of life. And I'm not even talking about mental health issues. Those are, separate issues, but just people who are reckless in their behaviors, take too many risks and chances with life, put you at harm and risk. And these are people that you want to be intimate with. That's really something to think about. Psychologically healthy people have a basic trust of human nature. They will care about how they treat people and how they direct their anger. So there are many people who have made me angry through words and gestures and everything, but I'm always cognizant of the fact that I don't want to take vengeance because vengeance belongs to the Lord. And I don't know where that person is. It's funny that I have more regard for them and their psychological health than they do for me. And I've had to, set some people straight without having to get angry and curse someone out or anything like that. But I am cognizant about how I talk to people because I don't know where a person is and how they are in their lives. And I would hate to be the one who says something to them and my saying something actually results in them harming themselves. I wouldn't want that. So I'm very careful about how I direct my anger. I try to work it out on my own, self-reflect. I will journal because if that person has gotten me angry, then there's still something in me that I need to work out. They need to be held responsible, right? But I can't change their thinking, so I have to work on me. Psychologically healthy people also should expect to enjoy greater riches in life than other people. They live in the present and participate in life events. So, I will say that people who have money tend to live a lot better in their heads and their minds. But you can have also all the money in the world and still not be happy and still not be psychologically healthy because if you've never prepared for riches, that's why you see people who win the lottery end up losing their money after a year because they don't have the preparedness to be rich. So then it becomes a burden to them to the point that they just spend all their money because their mindset um, is still broke. It's still at a lower socioeconomic level. See, rich people, kids in particular, they grow up in wealth. They grow up in riches. They hear their daddy and their mommy and their grandpa all conversing about actually being rich. They don't say, okay, we're rich, we're rich, we're rich. But they hear the business transactions. They get inheritance, right? They are exposed to it every day. They are exposed to the mansion. They are exposed to the car, the servants, and everything. So they have from 1 year old to 18 years old, so much 18 years, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year in rich, in wealthy, in that type of mindset and thinking. And then you get rich one day, 1 hour, and you don't have the tools to understand how to navigate that world. So like I said, you can be a person who has rich and still feel good about yourself, but then you can be rich and still not know how to how to navigate that life. All right, so to become a person of tomorrow, this means that you will require you to do the following. So you will have to create a walkaway strategy. There's no way around it. You cannot stay with someone who sees you as a in a distorted view. Also, you would have to establish or reestablish core values. So we go into these relationships without having any real cognizant understanding of our standards and core values. That's why it's very easy for us to lower our values, because we don't know what those values are. Embrace the therapeutic process towards change that requires you reflecting on your mindset about relationships, especially dating. You should set a goal to not sleep with someone on the first date. I don't care who that person is. You have to think about your own individual self and your own standard. And if you are beginning your dating process as one night stands, it's going to continue that way. The therapeutic process towards change will always require some kind of reflection on your culpability in a relationship. How long you stayed in that relationship does determine your initial intent, right? And then also when you realized that it was not going to be the type of relationship that was actually going to move forward, and you still stayed in that relationship. So that also requires you to go through a therapeutic process of change. Understand that for your relational partner, he or she will never perceive you as a 9, 10 or high value. When a person sees you in their distorted view as a 7, 8, and it is their distorted view because it is not your view. People tell you all the time, okay, rank yourself, and then you can use 7 or 8 or something like that. Anything below that, okay, that's their distorted view of you. That's not your view. Like I said, we don't know that we're ugly until somebody tells us we're ugly. Other than that, we believe that we are the finest thing around. We get our hair fixed, we get our nails done, we get new clothes. Why would we ever think we were a 5, right? So it's their distorted view that they are ranking you as a 7, 8. That does not mean that you believe that about yourself. At the same time, you do have to understand that that's how people in the mating market, dating market and sex market, especially men, tend to rank. Women don't rank based upon 1 through 10. I've never heard a woman say he's a 10. I've heard a woman say he's light-skinned, he's bow-legged, he's tall, he's good-looking, he's all of that, whatever, he's fine, that type of thing. That's how we rank men. We don't rank them by 1 to 10. That's how men do it. So becoming a person of tomorrow means that you may have to decide not to put yourself in the sex market, but plan your way into the marriage market. Then that way you save your time, you save all of that pressure on your body, you save your finances, and you just wait and continue to improve yourself and work on yourself and do things as an individual. You don't have to say that I don't need a man or anything like that. You just continue to do the things. You just continue to live your life. So let's conclude with how we see ourselves in terms of distorted views that have been projected onto us. Many a times we don't think we're ugly until someone tells us we're ugly. For all we know, we think we are beautiful. Even if we don't have the language to say we are beautiful, we wouldn't call ourselves ugly. But what somebody does is throws water on your mirror, and now when you look into the mirror, it's distorted. And so now all you see is distortion. So I want to look at in this lecture on distorted views and how they affect self-esteem. Change does not come when you accept yourself as a 7-8. In your eyes, your perception and self-concept, you may be a 9-10. It is the external evaluations, however, that cloud and distort the view of the self. However, you do have to understand that everyone else is entitled to their own perceptions. Therefore, you must decide if you will continue to accept their perception of you or become the ideal self roaming around in your head, and how you will exit those individuals who disturb that picture. You cannot grow in a relationship when you are perceived as a 7-8. All right, so hopefully you were able to gain insight from this video discussion. Please like, subscribe, and visit. So please like the video, hit the notification bell for more discussions. I am re-uploading all of my audios, so I needed to make some changes to them. You can visit my website for more content at reginayfavors.com. If you want to send me an email, you can send an email reginayfavors@yahoo.com. Please also purchase the book. It's going to come out in spring 2021. So I had to make changes to my book to update it, and I also updated the title. So the original title was Bait, Hook, and Switch: Confessions of a Rebound Girl, and I have updated the title to Toxic Encounters: Why People Pursue Rebound Relationships. So right now I'm still basically editing it, and I want to make it available in spring 2021. So thank you very much for visiting my channel, and I am Regina Y. Favors. Have a great day.